Right, last night's ceremony, the second one here. Pistahawawa. Fucking shambles, as far as I'm concerned. Not in a very good space today. There's a 70-year-old here called Paul from Oz, and he's had chronic lung issues for, I think he said on the first day, that from chronic smoking. And he'd been really ill, didn't make dinner and stuff for the first day and whatnot. Once he'd had the first drink of ayahuasca, which he said nothing happened. And that was the same on the first ceremony for quite a few people because it was very mild. But obviously ayahuasca starts working. He had to go through a lot of coughing, difficulty breathing, so he was in his cabin a lot. But anyway, he came to ceremony last night and he's okay. But unfortunately, he changed position by one space. Whether it would have made that much difference, I don't know. But it meant he was next to Amber, who's next to me. And she's a bit like me, very sensitive to disruption and distraction, just in her normal life. And probably got the same kind, because we were probably both ADHD. She's been through the back injury thing. She's obviously got her traumas. So when we were offered the drink, Paul, because nothing had happened the first time, they kind of would go straight into the trap. There were too many people, as far as I'm concerned, that were being encouraged by the shamana to drink 2 cups right at the start. Never come across that. Even after all the discussion we'd had in the sharing circle before, and I was really advocating, just do the 1 cup and see how it goes, and then take a second one later. One person, Sean, the Australian, who's the gung-ho, oh, Mama ayahuasca's on the fucking trip train and all this sort of shit. And yeah, he seems to have a good time, and that's fine. But he did 3 cups straight off the bat. So there were quite a few people who had 2 cups right at the start. I still only had 1, but I knew I had to do another one, or at least some of another one. I said to Maestro when she served me my cup, she said, do you want to do 2 cups? And I said, I'll just do the 1 first, and then maybe later have some more. And later on I did. But anyway, yeah, where do I start? So basically, because certain people had had 2 cups, obviously they underestimated ayahuasca, they're gung-ho, and it meant that more people than usual were vomiting straight away. And Paul vomited like fuck. The 2 cups came up pretty quick because of the amount of energy that he's taken in, and it's found the dark energy within him. He said he's got anger issues. There's undoubtedly a lot of dark energy. I know, I've been there. And so to have 2 cups, big cups like that, I mean, the glasses are probably this big, but 2 of those then put into a tin mug for the quantity, and then to drink 2 straight off the bat, I think that's irresponsible by the shamana, to be honest. To actually advocate, those that want to do 2 cups can do it, because this is the Sean prompting this one. He'd said at the beginning, can we do all the 2 cups at the beginning? And then he ended up doing 3. Because that's him, and he's obviously that kind of mentality. He thinks it's all super, blah blah, with his 20 ceremonies experience, but that's not the case for everybody, and I think it's really irresponsible. And consequently, he was also fucked me right off last night, because I know it was him, and he's just walked off the table because I mentioned it, because we've just been down to breakfast, no fucking eggs there. So I'm in a pretty shitty space at the moment, because I'm not happy now. After the second ceremony, I'm even more convinced about the shamana's limited abilities. I'm not feeling spiritual energy, but it seems to be whatever she's bringing into the Maloka, it's a bit of a free-for-all. I don't think she's got control of most of it. She lost control of the ceremony a couple of times last night, so that didn't impress me. So I'm thinking about, I'm not going to do the 3rd ceremony, because I'm not in a good space now either. I just don't trust some of the energies that are flying around in there, that she's got control of them, to be honest, because first of all, Paul, continue with him. Once his vomiting started, then once people really vomit heavily for quite a long time, obviously it's exhausting. And then he was obviously tripping heavily. He was like, he said, he just vocalized it, I don't even know where I am. And I thought, what do you fucking expect? He just drank 2 fucking cups straight off the bat, thinking it's fucking, you know, just like a fucking drink down the pub. So consequently, then he's like lying in different positions, and people, once they've had that exhaustion, they like this for fucking ages. Just, and of course that really close to two people away. And at one point, Amber got up, went to the toilet, and so did I. Just after I'd had my second top up, she went up off to the bog, and I thought, oh, I'm going to go as well now, just before the second cup kicks in, because I was actually starting to trip. It was coming on reasonably strong, not super strong, and it tends to fade off here. It's a strange scenario. Things just are so different to the way I'm used to having them done in Peru and other retreats. There's loads of things that are different, but I've really lost a lot of confidence today about. I think the shamana, she's lovely. She's a really caring person. I think she's probably really good with her plant medicines and stuff, and she's got a certain amount of power, but she's only got 10 years experience, and she seems quite young, and I'm not sure that she's, and I'm going to ask her how many plant dietas, because I should have asked that first day, just in general conversation, because I think she's primarily, I may be wrong, but we'll wait and see, but I think she's primarily a San Pedro shaman who's then come on to learn a bit about ayahuasca, but I don't know, I've got no indication of her training, and of course I don't know the cultural background of the Aymara, and because she's mountain anyway, that's not purely ayahuasca. And yes, you can have shamans that are both, no problem, but you know, they need to do their time in both traditions, you know. So I'm not sure what her abilities are about, because the Icaros are pretty much the same last night, which can happen. That's normal. It depends obviously what they're calling during that Icaro. But I'm not seeing any, when I do get visuals, I'm not getting a feeling that there's entities present, or I'm not sensitive to them. But what is around, if there's anything that I can't feel at all, it doesn't seem, I don't feel that she's got complete control of it. Because when she came over to help Paul, because he was struggling a lot when he was coughing incessantly, and she actually said, right, stop coughing. And she's, instead of just having, I mean, I did hear her go a couple of times, like she's expelling bad energy, like the Peruvian shamans do, and it did work. So she's obviously got some power, but I just don't think she's particularly strong. Not as strong as I'm used to with the Peruvian shamans, especially Jairo and Urias, Shipibo and Kakama, because, you know, Shipibo's reputation speaks for itself. The Icaros are quite gentle. They don't seem to build and drive energy, but the ayahuasca brew she's got, certainly, you know, it seems to be powerful enough. It just doesn't seem to be reined in. And of course, I know that if there's not the proper level of control, that certain darker sides of the plant spirits can enter, and if they're not being kept out, and I've got all these suspicions. And when I was coming up on the brew, and it was quite strong, and sort of, you know, I had the nausea sort of in my stomach because I haven't been doing it for a while, and I know I've got bad energy in me after the last 2 months. So that's being played on, and I was really thinking that I'd get a link to Mama Ayahuasca, but it wasn't strong. I wasn't even sure again, and because I wasn't 100% sure, especially in this environment where I don't trust the shamana's abilities, again, you've got to be careful about what you think you're talking to, because I've fallen for this trap before, because it can actually be the dark side of Mama Ayahuasca, because obviously plants are yin and yang, and if it's not just the good side coming through. And she said, I did get a really faint kind of voice, but I wasn't sure whether it was just me, because it was about, you've had the training, you know what you should be doing, and that's why you're in a bad space, because you didn't, you know, you haven't kept up your, you know, trying to do meditation and stuff like that because of the travel, and then of course preparation here with no food, and then being in a really bad space after the phone. I think I'm still in a negative space, and then to come here and then to have some of the things that are now starting to unfold here, the group will think it's great. Most of them are having a good time, and feeling okay, but they wouldn't know any different. And then just this mood's continued now, because I went to breakfast and the Dutch guy said, "Oh, how was your ceremony?" And because I'd come, I'd come literally last to breakfast. No fucking. There's been tons of boiled eggs every morning. And now there's none, and that was the only thing I wanted to eat. So I've just had some fruit. So I'm in a bit of a negative space already. And then one of the guys asked me, "Oh, how was yours?" And then this Sean, who's the one I gave Mapache to on the first day, who's obviously got his own opinions on ayahuasca. And like, it's all, wow, far out. And if he experiences that, great, good for you, mate. But I know it was him who, at one point last night, was really distracting. The shamana was giving, what was it? Where am I? Shamana was, she was blowing to Mapacho over everybody, and I'm last in the queue. So she got to Amber, and then he started having a full-blown conversation. He must have got out of his seat and moved over to Paul or to somebody and was having a full-blown conversation, like, and she said, "Silence," and that's, she said, "Silence, please," and then he continued. And, it was quite a loud conversation, because it sounded to me, you can't judge distance in the dark and on ayahuasca necessarily, but he sounded like he'd moved from where he was and come over for a chat. So she had to say that twice before he actually stopped talking, because I actually went, fuck, God. I thought, if it's you, with your 20 ceremonies experience, you should fucking know better and have more respect anyway for people. To have a full-blown fucking conversation about whatever you're talking about and fucking tripping about what your experience has been. You have all that after, the next day you talk about it, or you don't fucking talk about it during the ceremony. So that fucked me off, especially from him, because he should know better. And of course I mentioned this, and I just said I said there were too many distractions last night. When the guy asked me how it went, I said there were too many distractions. I said the cackling laughter went on way too long, in my opinion. And of course, a lot of people joined in on that, because they're all high on ayahuasca and probably just trying to. But that disturbed me, because to me there was cackling laughter. But anyway, just to finish off this, when I was asked this morning at breakfast by the Dutch guy how it was, and I said, and somebody had a full-blown conversation last night, and I know it's him, and I could see his face change, and he got up and walked out. And then he's just walked, and I'm still not in a good mood. When I actually left the Maloka just now, I was putting my shoes on. He was coming back from the toilet, and he kind of looked at me, and I was staring at him. And I could tell that, he'd moved away, because it's thrown his little bubble perception of, I was having a good time, man, because he knows that, I'm not happy about it. And I don't give a fuck, because I was actually been thinking about leaving, first time ever, leaving a retreat and asking for some money back. I'm that unimpressed in this bad mood. I don't feel comfortable here now. I don't feel that there's enough protection in the ceremonies, because of this other event that happened, because of the other German guy who's got a very big drug history. He's done loads of different drugs. He's young. And obviously I know any kind of toxins are a vector for possible infection. And then last night he did 2 cups as well. And then at one point there was this cackling laughter, like not normal. And I thought, that's interesting. But it went on, and then it just continued, like a cackling out of control laughter, like a trickster spirit, not demonic, but a trickster invading the Maloka. And then it set off another guy who was laughing. And then at one point, quite a few other people were laughing. And Maestro again was saying, "Silence," as if you shouldn't shouldn't say silence. In my view, it doesn't seem right to say, you should have the power as a shamana to control that behavior and stop people's behavior if you're strong enough. For me, because I've seen some strange things with mind control in my experiences with shamans and what they're capable of, if they're strong and in control of and this entity was seen and it popped back 3 or 4 times laughter, the cackling laughter. But this first time, it was like someone out of control, more than someone just having a hysterics fit. It's real, like, loud, and obviously disrupting her Icaro, and it was a really slow, passive Icaro, and I thought, this has got no strength. And this was what was going through my particular experience when I'm on ayahuasca. So all in all, I just thought, this kind of confirmed what I suspected on the first day about her strength. And I'm still thinking, God, I hope I'm wrong, because if that's the case, we're potentially in trouble in an ayahuasca ceremony if the shaman gets certain entities present, or what people are bringing, like potential demonic stuff. If she's not strong enough to deal with that, that's not a good situation. And it could be frightening. But I think it was just some kind of trickster. Whatever he was seeing, I mean, he was still lying down this morning. Whether he's been there, I think he's been there all night. He's the German lad, Ollie. But all the rest of the group all thought it was highly amusing and just all good fun, which is fine for them. But obviously, with my experience, I've got suspicions about other things. So far, I'm really not impressed, and consequently, I'm not feeling comfortable. So I don't think I'm going to do tomorrow's ceremony at ayahuasca, because there's just too many distractions, and I don't think she's got control of it. Because it went on a long time and kept coming back and repeating, and so it really shook my faith in her abilities to stay on top of that and control it. So far I'm not particularly impressed. So it's starting to feel a bit alienated now, because obviously I've gone down there in not so good a mood this morning, changed everyone else's initial perceptions, because some of them obviously still seemed quite, the few that were at the table, seemed to have a good thing. And when I mentioned about the laughing, they were like, oh, is it? It's like they kind of joined in on it. And then there's another thing that bothered me last night, because it's just not, I've not come across it. And she's got a particular Icaro that's got an annoying tune for me, and it's sung in English. And at one point, when some of this laughter was going on, she said, right, we're all going to sing together. And I thought, I just wasn't in the mood for fucking singing. So most people started singing, and it was sort of like this. I've again never come across this in any ayahuasca ceremony, a joint singing circle. And to me, it was almost a bit like desperation, that to try and get people doing something communally as a distraction from this guy with the cackling laughter. And of course, once the singing started, it just made him worse. It was like a real, trickster, disruptive spirit to me. Although I couldn't feel energy, but I obviously, because of my previous experiences, especially when they've done 2 cups and ayahuasca's starting to bring out stuff that's inside in whatever form. Paul's level of vomiting for the dark energy that he's containing at 70 years of age, and being in particularly bad health, and suffering anger issues. I've seen people suffer repeated vomits that go on too long, where they're struggling and not really much is coming up, but they're still vomiting because it's ayahuasca's trying to get the bad energy out. And then of course, because he felt he was probably tripping his balls off, and but then he still managed to have even a kind of a joke, because when the shamana came round and asked if was going around saying, anyone else who wants a second drink, you can have one. And he went, yeah. And of course, as she walked past him, you just heard, and she actually had a bit of a laugh and just said, no more for you. Because he was obviously joking, because the state he was in, and he wasn't going to get any anyway. But, this is the difference between people just all of a sudden thinking, oh, not much happened on the first night, because that's that ceremony. The first one's really important, because obviously the shamana's, if she's got the ability, should be checking everyone's energy out. And that's why I was more kind of pissed off when thinking about it in my ceremony, about this advocation for those who want to do 2 cups, you can do them at the beginning. I thought, that sounds really irresponsible after how responsible she was seemingly the first one and being quite conservative, and then me saying about just there's no, do the first cup, see how it goes, because it's not linear, and every ceremony is different. And I knew the second one was probably going to be stronger, and I certainly hoped it was, for the people who nothing happened before. And of course, even for some of the people where nothing happened before, it has happened now, except for poor Amber next to me, because when I got offered my cup, at the time I was still hoping to have quite a strong one, because at the time I was thinking it's really delayed for me because it didn't come in for normal 2 hours. So I'm kind of getting back to my usual procedure of how ayahuasca works with me. And so I didn't feel it for about 2 hours. And of course, the people who had 2 cups, they'd come up within the first hour, and they were flying. I was dead straight, just kind of sitting up at one point because I wasn't tripping yet. I was just monitoring some of the behavior, trying to see who was vomiting that hadn't vomited before, to see who it was working on now that it didn't necessarily work on the first night, stuff like that. Of course, because of the 2 cups, that I think 4 people had 2 cups at the beginning. So, there was vomiting, a little bit more vomiting than there was the first night, as that level of ayahuasca started to affect people, and it's a totally different ceremony. So, what was I saying? So basically, during that ceremony, I was just still, because I'm not feeling anything, and I didn't. That's what I was going to say about Amber. At one point, just as I'd had my second cup, I asked, Shamana came out, when I called her over, I said, can I just have a little bit more? I don't want a full cup, maybe just minimal. So she came back with probably a third of a cup. And I thought that's enough, because I'm feeling the first one. But I want to be tripping. I want to be, if I'm going to be strong tonight, I want it late. I'm happy with that, because I want, after all this distraction, I thought, if I'm going to be talking to Mama Ayahuasca and reconnect, I'd rather be after the ceremony, back in the room, as I usually can be, in Iquitos till 4 in the morning. Private conversation from sort of 12 or 1 in the morning till 4. As it turned out, again, it's a late ceremony here. They go on a bit too long as well, and certainly longer this night. We didn't get back to the room till 1:30 again, something like that. But I was straight, fortunately, because it does fade really rapidly when she ends the ceremony. It does seem to stop the ayahuasca, so that's odd as well. I was still a little bit trippy, but hardly anything. I could walk, and I wasn't in a good frame of mind because of what happened in the ceremony. So I just wanted to get out and get back to my room. My stomach, I had locked dark energy in my stomach that I knew I needed to vomit, and just wanted to get back to the room. It wasn't really strong, and when I did come back and stuck my fingers down my throat, again, this is weird, it was just water. There wasn't any ayahuasca in it. And then later on I did go to the toilet, which cleaned me out, so maybe it had gone right through and gone deep. But normally there's always something, especially for that particular feeling, there's normally bad energy in my stomach. That Aya finds, and then he wants to vomit out. It certainly wasn't strong enough to make me want to vomit into the bucket. Or during the ceremony, I was in that space, which I can be quite a lot, where it's just like, I just want to be back in my room, vomit, have my own space, have a crap, and then you can relax, drink water, because I was starting to get a bit thirsty. Of course, you have to wait till the end of the ceremony before you can drink. So, on the whole, but because of this trickster thing, I just still thought, she's, I don't think she's got that much power for it to have kept popping back the way that it did. She seemed to expel it the first time with a and then he stopped laughing, but then it popped back later. And it was just like as if it was taking the piss. It's just disruptive, like a disruptive little spirit. And I'm actually thinking maybe it's one of these little trickster elves that are running around this place. And then that's the other thing that dawned on me about the actual atmosphere in this place. It's a very nice place, but the atmosphere is neutral. Like if you come to Light of the Shipibo, it's like a Garden of Eden, and it's full of tranquility and love, because that's what everyone's like there. Here, it's just, there's just not a feeling of genuine care and love projected by the shamana. Although she's very sweet, very nice person, she's nice to talk to, and she's, whenever she talks, she's very keen on, oh, if you've got this issue in your stomach, we'll look at doing a particular plant drink to ease your stomach and stuff. And she's genuine in that sense, but it's not like full. It doesn't pervade this place. So that's another thing that struck me, compared to, because I've got a lot of experience at different retreats, and also she wasn't overly keen the fact that there'd been this little revolution that I'd probably started on the first night by turning my mattress around, because at one point yesterday during the day, a few people wanted to sit in the Maloka. I came in after lunch, and a load of people, everybody just decided to turn their mattresses round, because they probably want to lie down, because that's the norm. And when she came into the ceremony, she saw this. She said, I've noticed, obviously everyone's turned their mattresses around, and that's okay, but she said, I still want you to sit up, because the problem with people, if they lie down, it's possible that people fall asleep. And that, yes, that's true, but certainly not in my case. I never sleep during an ayahuasca ceremony. You shouldn't be able to, but you can. I've come across that plenty of times as well, especially with people who fall asleep and fucking snore and drive you nuts as well. But it's more important, in my view, than this concept of the crown chakra sticking upwards. Never come across this, in ceremonies. If it's much more important, because if ayahuasca lays you out, man, and makes you feel really fucking shit, you can't necessarily stay sat up. You have to lie down, and especially just to move your stomach from side to side if you've got stomach issues. And of course, if you've got a back injury or anything that makes you uncomfortable. So of course, that's probably the case for most normal people. They might want to lie down because you're more comfortable. That's why we fucking sleep lying down, isn't it? So, she's kind of reiterating, it's almost like it's a bit of a control point for me. It should be, for me, and from my experiences and the way we do it, every other retreat's done it, your comfort comes first. Because if you're not comfortable, you're not going to connect properly anyway, because you're going to be concentrating on your discomfort rather than concentrating on being in your journey. So again, it was just another thing for her to reiterate. And I thought she's just kind of stuck in, that's the way that she's been taught, or she believes is the way it should be done. And I disagree. But anyway, Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say about Amber. When I had I thought she got up and started. I just had the second cup, and then Amber got up and went to the toilet, and I thought, I'll go just because it might be, if it comes on strong now, I don't want to go to the toilet particularly, but I'll go anyway. And I was just curious to see how Amber was doing. So when we came out at the same time, washing our hands at the bar, I said, "How are you?" And she said, "Oh." She said, I was just actually, because nothing happened for her at all in the first ceremony. And she said, I was just starting to have sort of visions. I said, but Paul was so distracting, because obviously his coughing and his vomiting and his breathing. I said, I know, it's, it's just really just one of those things, unfortunately, when, but so I knew that she was disturbed. And then after that, I could feel kind of that she wasn't going to go anywhere. She didn't bother with a second cup then, because she just couldn't concentrate. There were too many distractions, so she didn't bother having the second cup. I know her ceremony was disrupted, and this is partly why with this particular group now, as they've shown their colours of what's going on. Some of the ones that are, I think they've got to like this, it's all good, great stuff, because they may not have trauma. They might just be like a bit of the tourist kind of mentality, I mean, they're sensible. That's the wrong word. It's not. They're not like just like all like people who are just druggies that want to come and try ayahuasca because it's another drug that I haven't tried. But that mentality of just do 2 cups, I never like to see that, because they don't know. It also shows disrespect, because they don't know the power of ayahuasca. And one of them, there's a really nice guy, and Tony, very stuttery, very, very quiet the first day. He's really unsure of himself, but he's a really nice guy. But he did 2 cups. And as I was walking into the Maloka at breakfast this morning, he was there, and he came up and as if wanted to tell me that. He said, "Oh, I see what you mean now." I said, "Oh." He said, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, I experienced the power of ayahuasca last night after what you said, how it can be." And because I was in a bit of a negative space, I just said, "Never underestimate the power of ayahuasca." And then went in to breakfast, and of course found that all the fucking boiled eggs had gone. And I was just, fucking the only thing I wanted to eat. But there's fruit there, so I just had some papaya and some banana, and that's when I sat down with my bowl. And then of course the other guys, "Oh, how are you?" And of course I couldn't help it, because I was not in a very good space. And I knew Sean was there, and they were all having their nice little chat, and Sean giving his blab about, because he's very good at talking about his experiences and putting it in sort of all the transcendental niceties, which is all very well if people experience that. And if he does, good luck. But, in a couple of points last night, he shouted out to Paul, who's his Aussie mate, "I love you, Paul. I love you, man," and all this sort of stuff. And it's fine. That was okay. But to get up and come over and actually have a full-blown conversation mid-ceremony, I thought, that's not cool. It's just totally disrespectful of everybody else in the ceremony, let alone, because that's the rules, and she'd stated those rules. There's no talking between people in ceremonies, for a good reason, because other people can be in a particular space, might be at a really critical point of their journey, in a particular vision, going through something emotional, having a bad time with just feeling like crap. And to have some fucker who's just having a wacky, great trip, man, and want to talk about it during the ceremony, it's just fucking disrespectful. And I said he should fucking know better for 20 ceremonies. So I've changed my view of him completely this morning, and he knows it, because he doesn't want to be around me now. Good. Yeah, he's the one who wanted to. He pounced Mapacho off me as well. So, and he's talking about rapé and saying, "Oh, I really like rapé, blah blah blah." I mean, I use it when I do kind of use it wrongly in some respects when I'm bored on the journey, because I've got nothing else to do. But certain times it really has a place, especially after ayahuasca, just if you're really tripping and you're exhausted, and mum has been talking to you a lot and she won't stop, but you're exhausted and you can't think anymore, like when it's really strong. Rapé can just be the difference to pull you down that little bit of level, to be able to really shut the ayahuasca down enough to be able to drop off to sleep if you're struggling, when you're really super knackered and exhausted, especially in our retreat, where the level of strength of ayahuasca, but it's done properly with shamans that are fucking powerful, and they've got complete control of the spirit world, which is what your shaman should be. And I'm just not feeling that here at all. So I'm not very impressed right now. So it'll be interesting to. I'm not going to say too much in the sharing circle. Obviously I was in a bit of a shitty mood earlier. I don't want to ruin it for the other people who are first timers that don't know any different, that are getting good stuff out of it, because my opinions are mine based on experience, and it's not for me to tell people really what I think about what's really going on about the shaman. But when I was angry, I thought it's like, well, I've got my own opinions kind of thing about what's really going on here. But I'm like, oh well, you've got a lot of experience. It's like, yeah, I have. But it's not for me to, because people paid a lot of money to come here. It's minimum $1,000 for 10 days for shared rooms. I've paid $1,700 just to have a fucking place on my own, a bit extra, you know, another $700 more just to be on my own in a cabin. So to me as well, that also starting to smack a little bit that it's more about a business and money from Eric and his wife's and the father who runs the place. And I think this is also reflected in what I feel about the atmosphere. They're not here primarily to do the work of Mama Ayahuasca, which obviously where we are at Light of Shipibo, that's the primary motivation. And you can feel it. You can feel the difference. There's no question. That's why I'm really looking forward to getting back now. So, you know, I didn't do 4 months at that retreat for no reason, because I've been around and I know where it's done properly. And of course, if you get a retreat that's as nice as this, with good food and good tambos and generally okay with many first timers, if it's their first experience, they're not going to, how are they going to know what levels of ability of different shamans there are until they've experienced many different shamans, which I have? How are you going to know what's a good one and what's a bad one? You're not. So provided you have an overall generally good experience, you're going to say, yeah, this place is great, and it's going to show us a 5-star review. But it's the only one in Bolivia, and it looks like at least as the best there is. I mean, Marlena said there's a guy that I did also find who goes up in the mountains and does just like one-off ceremonies, and she said, oh no, he's terrible. She'd been to him. So again, you got the same situation, you know. That's why I'm skeptical about shamans who offer ayahuasca in mountain environments, because they're probably primarily coca leaf, San Pedro tradition, and may not be necessarily trained properly. And of course, the training comes from not just the shaman who teaches you, it's how many fucking plant deities you've done. So that's why I'm going to talk to her today in a kind of nice enough way, and just try and get a handle on how many dietas she's actually done, because I'm starting to wonder, because to me she just doesn't seem to have sufficient connection with enough plant spirits to be able to call them in, control the space, you know, to ask them to do the bidding and control the correct amount of white energy to be able to do the work, but keep control on the dark side. But also, I'm not sensing, even though the ayahuasca was quite strong last night, I'm not sensing, when she's singing Icaros, I'm not sensing, I'm trying to give her the benefit of the doubt that I'm dirty, maybe I'm just not receptive, or there's other energies here that are blocking, or what. I don't know what's going on, and this is partly why I'm a bit kind of confused and fucked off, because it's not affecting me in my usual way, except for the stomach pains and the vomit, you know, feeling just the vomit afterwards. So it was strong enough to do that last night, which is good. And I think I've collected quite a lot of negative energy in the last 3 months, because the trip's been pretty shitty, you know, and I'm on my own. I've got a lot to still consider about my future and all that sort of stuff. So I'm still dealing, and after what happened in Riber Alta, and Riber Alta itself has been a negative experience. West coast of Peru was a negative experience. Some horrible towns, shit weather, some, you know, lots of pleasant people, piss stink chala in places. There were some, you know, decent places, but overall I was in a good space. But since I've come here, and it, you know, I've been really not in a very good space. So maybe I'm still suffering from that, but either way, you know, you're still thinking I should be feeling spiritual energy if it's in the Maloka. You know, that's the levels I got to when I left Peru for the 6 months of continuous ayahuasca that I've done there. 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. It's a lot with dietas. Got very clean and very sensitive, and I know what spiritual energy is. I've had plenty of experience with it, and I'm not feeling it here. Second ceremony, I'm not feeling it. In the Maloka, I'm not feeling spiritual presences in the Maloka when she's singing her Icaros. So either they're really weak, or she's just not calling certain strong enough entities, and then some of the other things that are appearing that she's probably not intending on, I don't think she's got really that much control. And that cackling thing was like as if it was taking the piss out of her, you know, disrupting the ceremony, and she didn't really have the strength to really get rid of it immediately. I mean, it died off later because obviously when you're laughing that much, you wouldn't be able to sustain that for too long. But it was a really weird. It wasn't demonic. It wasn't nasty. It was just like a fucking teenager that's disrupting a class in school where they know the teacher's got no power. It was a bit like that, but a weird cackle. It was unnatural. You say, oh, well, you know, that's what most people probably think. Oh, well, you know, that was because of your trip experience of what was going on. Got a big ant on the table here, sniffing about. Not that big, but they're the docile ones that are not quite pleasant. So anyway, feeling a bit better for getting this off my chest, which is why I did it now. So we'll go and have lunch at 1. It's about 12 now. And then afterwards will be the sharing circle, and I'm going to have to really bite my tongue because I don't want to spoil it for everybody else. Because they're here, you know, they paid the money, and it's not. But I'm not impressed, and it's a concern for me. So I'm just trying to think what I'm going to say about. I'll probably just leave it as, yeah, the ayahuasca was quite strong, but unfortunately there was just so many distractions for me. I felt really uncomfortable, and then I had a bad stomach as well. So I just wanted to get back to my room, and be quiet and have space, and just leave it at that. There's just no point, I don't think, because there's just no point in talking to the shaman unless I talk to a one-to-one, and the only way I want to approach that as well is as if it's just a little conversation like we've had a few times, where it's just general chat, and just say, oh, you know, oh, so how many dietas have you done then, Wara? And just see how many, and gauge from that of how many dietas in proportion to 10 years of supposed practicing. Because at some points, in my heightened kind of paranoia last night in the ceremony, I'm even, and that can happen in ayahuasca. You obviously you imagine it, not just your imagination, but it's your whole being can start to get a bit paranoid about what's really going on. Especially because of my background of coming across, you know, demonic possessions. I'm always looking out for it, and because it manifests in so many different ways. It doesn't have to be full-blown possession stuff. But even just overly odd behavior that's beyond, say, people crying or having emotional aspects. But this full-blown cackling was, I thought, you know, when it went on too long, I thought, that's not normal. There's something else going on there. And then I remembered it was Ollie, and he told me a lot about his drug history, speed, and he's done so many different types of drugs. And just thinking, now you've just taken 2 cups of ayahuasca and you're open. Something else might be popping in and taking a bit of control of that individual, although they wouldn't be aware of it. I will talk to him at some point out of curiosity and just say, oh, what was going on with your laughing? You know, what were you experiencing? What visions were you having that was so amusing? It sounded like you were having a great time. I'll just put it like that and see what he remembers of it. So these are the sort of things that can happen. And you know, even for me, you know, it might be my turn to fuck people off because I've had to suffer it, you know, where somebody is having a difficult time in an ayahuasca ceremony. We've had people leave, and now I feel like that. So it's a first for me. I actually feel like pissing off, but I've got nothing better to do and loads of time to kill. So I'll stick it out because I'm curious about the San Pedro more than anything, but I'm really thinking that I won't do tomorrow's ceremony because I don't want to go through that again. And I don't want to go through the particular experience of ayahuasca that she's got without feeling that there's protection there, or that I'm actually getting there's enough energies to kick off a connection with Mama Ayahuasca properly, so that I know it's Mama Ayahuasca I'm talking to, and have a proper conversation that isn't just seemingly abrupt and obtuse, which is kind of what I got last night. But I was also thinking maybe it's me, my own mind that I'm talking to, because I also know that I am guilty of not sort of keeping myself as clean as I should have been. So that was possibly my subconscious talking to me, and it's difficult because I've had experiences of actually having other, like, or maybe the dark side of Mama Ayahuasca talk to me, and the shaman back in Peru, spoken to me about this, about not keeping up your mapacho and your connection each day. And of course I haven't been traveling, and you just don't, without rapé and having that moment just to kind of make a connection during day-to-day processes. So there's been a long time where I haven't been staying connected, and just don't feel particularly close to the whole process right now. I've been sucked back into the reality of the real world and my future again, regarding what I'm going to do in the future. There's only so long you can go on the Aya journey before it can't really do any more for you. So I'll go back to Peru in January, and then get back in that environment, and then see where I am. That's all I can do, because it's not happened here. Maybe this is just a learning experience along the way, again, for how different retreats work, and some of the ones that aren't as good as others, and obviously not, in my view, optimal for what it can be, because you've got to have powerful shamans that know what they're doing. Well, not just know what they're doing, what they are, that have that respect of the spirit world, where they are completely in control. And for me, it doesn't appear to be the case. I'll reserve my judgment on her overall ability after the San Pedro ceremony, because I don't know much about San Pedro. I've done a few. I've had my experience in Ecuador with Santiago, who was obviously very good because he exercised me. But it's different, San Pedro. I can't, it's not spiritual in the same, it is spiritual, but not as a perception of spirituality, because it's daytime and you're awake and out and about, and you're up and about doing stuff. So it's more about just, it's a different level of energy remove, a different way that it works in some ways from your perception point of view. But I haven't got much experience of it, but she is a San Pedro shaman. So it will be interesting I'll experience that again, just because it's offered, and just to see how that goes, and whether that is pleasant and has a good cleaning effect. Because it can be, like all of them, you can have a really close, connection with nature and feel really calm and just in a really, really beautiful space on little amounts that I've had of it. But with Santiago, it was strong to clean, and I needed it, and it got rid of my really bad energy that I carried for 10 months that ayahuasca couldn't seem to shift, even in Peru. But then, I've been dealing with the corrupt shaman there as well. I've done 2, 3 ceremonies. I was at Flower of Life, which was very good. Clementina there was nice. She got me back on track after the shit that happened in Mankara. So, this is the journey. It's all about ups and downs, but there's always something to learn, and this is what you can't get over to people. It's so nuanced and changeable. So anyway, I'm going to sort of keep my distance a little bit, just keep my mouth shut, be quiet for a while, and just let everyone else carry on with their own journey, because it seems it's going well and people are having a good time. It's not for me to interfere with that. If that's the way ayahuasca's working for them, despite what I think about the levels of abilities of the shamana. She's obviously got some, because it was definitely, and I did ask that if it's the same drink after the first ceremony. I said, is it the same brew that we have? And this again, this proves that it's not about just the drink. It's all the other variables, because when she was smoking her pipe last night, a lot of the Peruvian shamans, they will whistle, just do like a quiet whistle to energize the drink for that night's ceremony. She was smoking a pipe and just calling in what Aymara language, I assume, and mentioning different spirits as if that's what she wanted to call into the drink. And obviously it was a lot stronger than last night for everybody, including me, than it was for the first night. But it's the same drink. So you see, and these are the things that people really don't get a handle on when they're a beginner. You know, you have to put all these pieces of the jigsaw together in time through your own experiences and you know, doing a lot to really get a much broader picture of how nuanced and complicated the whole process is, because it is. So on that note, I've offloaded all that fucking shit at 50 minutes, but it'll all go online. I said I won't leave a review here because I don't want to taint them. They're the only one in Bolivia. But if people who watch this video, maybe it suits you to come to go to Bolivia or whatever. But you know, I've got the light of Shipibo, and in all of my experiences, that's where I'd advocate anybody who's looking to do ayahuasca to go, because it's the best there is so far, by a long way. So anyway.